Hey, good morning to both of you. Yeah, Austin Water issued this notice just before 3 o'clock this morning. Right now, they're asking the entire city to boil water used for cooking, drinking, or ice. And Austin Water says that notice will be in effect until further notice. The company says the historic floodwaters flowing into the Highland Lakes, which is where our water supply comes from, contains much higher levels of debris, silt, and mud. So as a result, it's making it very difficult or challenging for the water plants to produce the volume of water needed to supply the entire city. Right now, customers need to reduce using water as much as possible to ensure there's enough for basic needs like fire protection, public health, and safety. Boiled water is only for consumption. It protects people of any harmful bacteria and other germs. Businesses should not use drinking fountains or soda fountains that rely on tap water.
I've talked to the engineers that have worked at our utility for 40 years, and we have never seen an event that is undertaking. All three of our major drinking water plants are affected, and all of our staff are involved. We have people working 24 hours a day on this throughout the weekend, and they've never seen anything like it.
I want to mention that Austin Water says there have been no positive tests for bacteria in the water systems at this time, and the boil water notice will be lifted once Austin Water is able to decide that the water is safe enough for all of us to drink. Back to you. Hey, good morning to both of you. Austin Water issued this notice just before 3 o'clock this morning. Right now, they're telling everyone in the city to boil water used for making ice, drinking, or cooking. Austin Water says that they want the entire city to do this until further notice. The company says the historic floodwaters flowing into the Highland Lakes, which is where our water supply comes from, contains much higher levels of debris, silt, and mud. As a result, it's making it very challenging for the water plants to produce the volume of water needed to supply the entire city. Right now, customers need to reduce using water as much as possible to ensure there's enough for basic needs like fire protection, public health, and safety. Boiled water is only for consumption. It helps protect people from any harmful bacteria and other viruses. Businesses should not use drinking fountains or soda fountains that rely on tap water. And we are just finding out that there is going to be a press conference in 30 minutes at City Hall. The city manager, Austin Mayor Steve Adler, and the director of Austin Water will all be there speaking. Back to you. Hey, good morning to both of you. Yeah, that's right. Press conference is set to start any minute now. It will be with the mayor of Austin, the city manager, and the director of Austin Water. Just before 3 o'clock this morning, that boil water notice was issued for the entire city. Right now, they are urging everyone to boil water for at least 2 minutes for drinking, cooking, or making ice. Now, just yesterday, Austin Water had another press conference telling people to limit the amount of water they're using. They said due to all the rain and runoff they're seeing, the cloudiness of the lake water increased by 100 to 200 times from the typical condition. The flooding has brought extremely high levels of silt into the city's water supply, so it is taking more time to filter out. Now, fast forward to this morning, the city of Austin has issued a citywide boil water notice. The city plans on lifting the notice once the treatment systems are stabilized. Austin Water is also asking people to cut back on indoor watering for washing clothes, dishes, and no outdoor watering and taking shorter showers. Austin Water says it will notify customers when the water is safe to drink and no longer necessary to boil. Again, that press conference is set to happen any minute. We are seeing some city officials walking in right now, and we're going to bring that live on Good Day Austin, both on air, also online. Back to you. Oh, yeah, it just wrapped up, Amanda. I know we carried it live. Quite a long press conference, I believe, and really they wanted to stress to people, city officials, as well as Austin Water, how important this is. It's not only affecting residents and everyday people who go and come to work, but it's for all schools, hospitals, and we have UT Austin here, a lot of universities. So this is impacting a lot of people. I did ask the director of Austin Water how long this notice could last, because it's typically 24 to 36 hours when we report on these boil water notices in other cities. And Right now, he could not answer that question. He says it's definitely going to be longer than 24 to 36 hours. He also said this is the first time in Austin's history that they have issued a citywide boil water notice. This is for cooking, drinking, using to make ice, water for your pets. They're asking people to minimize all water if possible. And that's because a lot of the water plants throughout the city of Austin are out of service. There is so much rain and mud and runoff that have gone into the lakes here because of that historic flooding that happened last weekend. They're not able to produce as much water needed for people to drink. This is also affecting restaurants, if I did not mention that. But the water director says that in terms of clarity right now, normally crystal clear water is just under 0.3. Right now, it's more than 400. So that should really give it in perspective how bad the water is, how dirty the water is. The mayor called Lady Bird Lake a chocolate milkshake because if you guys have seen the lake over the past weekend, it is just all brown. So there really is no other way to put it than a chocolate milkshake. City officials are asking everyone to come together, not to freak out, but to come together and try to minimize their use of water as much as possible, conserve the water so that they're able to use the water for main reasons, and that's for drinking, cooking, that we all need to live on every day. They said normally the city of Austin produces about 3 million gallons of water a day, but for the past 2 days, they've only been able to do about 100 gallons. They are asking the state to help bring in bottled water to supply to Austinites. They're also trying to reallocate some of those, or to bring in water that's normally for emergency purposes and then have it for residents to consume. Main message, minimize as much water as possible so we can make the best use of the water available. That's just a brief recap of what happened less than 10 minutes ago, and then I'm going to have another live report all morning on Good Day Austin. Back to you guys. Hey, good morning, Dave. This is not only affecting residents, but it's affecting schools, hospitals, restaurants, and other businesses all throughout the region. We also know not just for the city of Austin that will be affected with this boil water notice, also some surrounding cities in Westlake, some parts of Round Rock, and outside city limits in Travis County. Austin Mayor Steve Adler is asking all Austinites to come together and help conserve as much water as possible. That way that we are able to use the water that we have. We do know the historic flooding has severely affected the drinking water in this city. And this is some video that we've shot throughout the flooding here in Central Texas. The Austin Water Director says the city has 3 major drinking water plants, and all of those plants draw water from the river. They've been reducing capacity at those plants to try to treat the cloudy water. The Austin Water Director says due to all the rain and runoff, they're seeing the cloudiness of the lake, Lady Bird Lake, the water increase drastically. Typically, the water we drink is measured at 0.3 in terms of clarity, but right now he says it's more than 400. He says it's at a level they have never experienced in the history of Austin Water. Just yesterday, they held a press conference asking people to limit the water. Now today, they're asking people to just boil their water for at least 3 minutes or get bottled water.
It's of a level that we've never experienced in the history of our utility, and it's been a real struggle. We've been trying to stay up with it, but last night we determined that we could no longer provide adequate water into the system to preserve pressures and fire and still meet the turbidity or clarity requirements of drinking water.
And here's a map that Austin Water released to us this morning. Gives you a better idea what areas are affected with this boil water notice. The city says they're asking the state to help bring in bottled water. They're also planning on using water that's normally for emergency purposes. And I did ask them how long could this notice last. Well, right now they cannot give me an answer. Back to you in studio. We do know that a lot of school districts are releasing information on social media telling parents or whoever to give their kids bottled water, making sure they have bottled water when they go to school this morning. Right now, we don't know how long this boil water notice will last, but Austin Water says the historic flood waters flowing into the Highland Lakes, which is where most of our water supply is coming from, contains such high levels of debris, silt, and mud. So as a result, it's making it very challenging for the water plants to produce the volume of water needed to supply the entire city. Right now, customers need to reduce using as much water as possible, making sure there's enough for basic needs like fire protection, public health, and safety. Right now, the notice is only for consumption. It helps protect people from any harmful bacteria and other viruses. Right now, the city doesn't know how long this notice will last.
We don't know yet. Until we can stabilize the water and the treatment systems and the river water quality is of a level that we can treat successfully. We're treating water. There's water in the system. It's just at a risk of being above the turbidity standard. That's an indication that our treatment processes aren't as effective as normal, which is a risk. And that's why we're indicating, for protection of public health and safety, we should do a boil water notice.
Austin Water says they have notified all restaurants about this new boil water notice. It's affecting restaurants, schools, hospitals, and various businesses all throughout the region. Back to you in studio. Hey, good morning to both of you guys. Austin Water says that they have never had a city-wide boil water notice in the history of their company. And anyone who's gone through Lady Bird Lake, well, you can see just how muddy the water is. And that's because of all the debris coming in and out here with all of the historic flooding we've had over the past several days. Austin Water says it's been very challenging for the city to filter out all of the debris and produce enough clean water and supply the entire city, which is why they have issued this notice. The Austin mayor says that the city all needs to pull together. The Austin Water Director says the city has 3 major water plants, and all of those plants draw water from the river. They've been reducing capacity at those plants to try to treat the cloudy water. The director says due to all the rain and runoff, they're seeing the cloudiness of the lake water increase drastically. To put it into perspective, they say the water we drink is usually measured at 0.3 in terms of clarity. Right now, it's over 400. This level, they have never experienced it before in their history, and this flooding has brought extremely high levels of debris into the city's water supply, so it is taking more time to filter out. And you can see just how brown the water is here. We've already seen some businesses nearby in the downtown area posting signs that they will no longer be serving water until this notice ends. We did ask Austin Water and city officials how long they plan on issuing this notice. Well, they couldn't answer that question. Also, we've seen a lot of school districts posting on social media notifying parents to send their kids to school with bottled water. Back to you. Hey, good morning to both of you guys. Let me show you what the problem is. Austin Water says typically we drink water that's measured at 0.3 in terms of clarity, so that's what we've got in this water bottle. But right now it's over 400. That's what's being measured on Austin Water scale. So you can see just how dirty the water is right now. This boil water notice is for schools, businesses, restaurants, hospitals, and residents all across the region. Right now, we're not sure how long this boil water notice will last. The city says it will be asking the entire city to do this until further notice. Austin Water says the historic flood waters flowing into the Highland Lakes, which is where a majority of our water supply is coming from, contains much higher levels of debris, silt, and mud. As a result, it's making it very challenging for the water plants to produce the volume of water needed to supply the entire city. Right now, customers need to reduce as much water as possible to ensure there is enough for basic needs like fire protection, public health, and safety. Boiled water is only for consumption. It will help protect people of any harmful bacteria and other viruses. Also, businesses should not use drinking fountains or soda fountains that rely on tap water. Right now, the city doesn't know when the notice will end. I've already seen some local businesses in the downtown area posting signs on their drinking fountains and where they go get sodas and whatnot, notifying people they won't be serving soda or water because of the notice. Like I mentioned, no word yet on how long this will last. Austin Water says that they are taking it day by day, hour by hour. Also, they have not had any positive results of any bacteria in the water. This is just a precaution. Back to you. Hey, good morning, Amanda. Right now, there's no telling when this notice will end, but Austin Water and city officials are telling residents to boil the water for at least 3 minutes. This is not only affecting residents, but it's affecting hospitals, schools, restaurants, and various businesses all throughout the region. Mayor Steve Adler says all of Austin needs to pool together. Austin Water Director Greg Mazzaro says the city has 3 major drinking water plants, and all of those plants draw water from the river. They've been reducing capacity to those plants to try to treat the cloudy water. Austin Water says due to all the rain and runoff, they're seeing the cloudiness of the lake water increase drastically. Typically, the water we drink is measured at 0.3 in terms of clarity. Right now, it's over 400 on the scales. Mazzaro says it's at a level they have never experienced before in their history. The flooding has brought extremely high levels of debris into the city's water supply, so it is taking more time to filter out. And you can see the water behind me here at Lady Bird Lake, just how brown and muddy it looks. Mayor Steve Adler called it a chocolate milkshake. The city says they are asking the state to help bring in bottled water, and they also plan on using water that's normally for emergency purposes. Now, Austin Water also asking customers to cut back on indoor watering for washing clothes and dishes, and no outdoor watering and taking shorter showers if at all possible. Back to you. Yeah, Amanda, well, we are seeing a lot of people coming down and taking a look at the river for themselves, and that's because a lot of these people say they've never seen the level of the river this high before. Some say never in their lifetime. So they're calling this a pretty remarkable event. They're calling it historic. We do know that there are mandatory evacuations in place. A handful of those centers are here in Llano. Some other centers or shelters are in Kingsland, but we are getting some new information from the Austin Fire Department. They recently put out a tweet on Twitter telling people that due to the current and ongoing flooding situations in the hill country, they have deployed a boat squad of 7 people, an AFD boat, and 2 helicopter rescue personnel as part of Texas Task Force 1. They say this is a statewide response to the area, and they will be gone for several days. We do know that this flooding has been happening for several hours now. The Llano Bridge has been shut down since about 6:30 this morning. That's when we got here, and they were shutting it down as we were arriving on scene. So this is as close as we can get to the river. A lot of people, school has been canceled, so a lot of parents are bringing their kids out here taking videos and photos. But just be careful because there are evacuations in place, and officials are saying that they need to take these evacuation orders very seriously. Back to you. Yeah, Lauren, I just got back from kind of scoping out the scene. I walked to the other side of the bridge. Authorities are letting us walk across the street there, but still the bridge is shut down. I wanted to get a good look of what was happening over there, and the current is still coming down pretty strong, rushing waters along and in the river. We've seen a handful of things being ripped apart. We saw a refrigerator. We know that several boats have been floating in the river, making its way to the dam. So a lot of people coming out here, checking it out, taking photos, taking videos, because they have never seen the water this high. But you can tell that the water has gone down. I believe Zach said it's been about 2 to 3 feet since it crested earlier this morning. You can tell the water level has gone down. Before, when we first got here, it was nearly touching the bridge, but now several feet below that. So that is good news, but people still need to pay attention to those evacuation orders. We know that anyone living within a quarter mile from the river needs to evacuate. There are a handful of shelters in place throughout the city of Llano and Kingsland. More evacuation shelters are opening by the minute, and that's because the flooding just continues. You can see all along here on the streets, on the sidewalk, water is just overflowing. So if you are told to evacuate, please listen to those directions and, yeah, just be safe out there. Back to you.